Dear Lord, thank you for blessing our great city with numerous people who are dedicated and selfless with their time and talent, continue to watch over us and guide our decisions, actions, and thoughts. We ask for your continued protection for our first responders and all city employees who make this a great place to live and work. Let our hearts be kind to one another and hear all voices as we continue to do our work. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
For the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Herniman. Here. Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Reesner.
Here.
Councilmember Snee.
Here.
Councilmember Thacker. Here. Councilmember Doherty.
Here.
Councilmember Hayes.
Here.
Let the record show all 7 members of council are present this evening. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing related to Ordinance 25-23, which is an ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting replacement changes thereto and declaring an emergency. If there's any commentary, you may do so at this time. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Minutes from March 17, 2025, regular and committee of the whole were distributed. Any questions, corrections, or deletions? All right, minutes will stand approved as presented. We are now under committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilmember Reesner.
No report, Madam President.
Law and Community Planning, Councilmember Doherty.
No report, Madam President.
Materials and Equipment, Councilmember Jones.
No report, Madam President.
Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilmember Hayes.
Thank you, Madam President. A Personnel and Labor Relations Committee meeting was held on March 31st, 2025 at 5:15 p.m. in council chambers. Attending were committee members Cheyenne Thacker and Kyle Dougherty, along with City Administrator Nick Dutro, Law Director Zachary Fowler, and Police Chief Dave Pauly. Chairperson John Hayes was absent, and Thacker led the meeting in his absence. Thacker called the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss Mayor's request for legislation 25-19, an appointment to the Tree Commission, and Mayor's request for legislation 25-20, changes to police administration, and any other business that came before them. Chief Pauly gave the committee information on his proposed changes to police administration. The change would reduce the number of lieutenants of the police department from 3 to 2. This change would happen by attrition. The change would allow for the department to potentially hire an additional patrol officer to increase the strength level by 1 to 30 sworn officers. Other alternative hiring options include a field services officer or a civilian IT professional. Thacker motioned to have the law director prepare legislation. Dougherty seconded the motion, and the motion passed 2-0. Dutro gave the committee information about the appointment of Ann Huth Fretz to the Tree Commission. The candidate's residence is in a township and not the city, so unfortunately she did not qualify to be appointed to the board. The committee expressed its sincerest thanks to the candidate in the meeting, but unfortunately could not move forward with accepting the mayor's appointment. Thacker motioned to have the law director prepare legislation to not accept the appointment due to residency requirements. Dougherty seconded the motion. The motion passed 2-0. With no further business, the committee adjourned at 5:52 p.m. And thank you to Councilwoman Thacker for leading this for me. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Right. Recreation and Public Property, Councilmember Snee.
No report at this time, Madam President.
All right, thank you. Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers, Councilmember Thacker.
No report, Madam President.
And Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilmember Herniman.
No report, Madam President.
Does anyone see the need to schedule a committee of the whole meeting? All right, we are now under reports of the officers. His Honor, Mayor Lee Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam President. I gave the State of the City address on Wednesday at the Chandelier, April 2nd. It went off pretty well, I think. So if you missed it, you can always find the link to the video on the city's Facebook page. It's also on the Chandelier's Facebook page. Don Mitchell, during that time, was recognized as the Citizen of the Year for 2024. Don spent over 40 years just quietly volunteering to do work that keep Tiffin more beautiful. So that was very nice. Very good. Also, congratulations to Chief Chappell and the Tiffin Fire Rescue Department as they received a $12,000 grant from the state fire marshal for their turnout gear. Aqua lead service line replacement continues throughout the city. Restoration crews should be actively restoring those places that have been disturbed by their work, and the engineering department is actively taking inventory of all the places that there were trenches to make sure that those get restored correctly. And coming up next week is April 15th, everybody's favorite day, so don't forget to file your income taxes. So at this time, we have a couple updates. I would like to start by introducing Deb Reamer from the Human Resources
We're
Department.
gonna let Kevin go first.
Or I could start by introducing Kevin
I'll let
Hughes
him go first.
to
but
give
thank
us
you,
an
Mayor.
update on the Water Pollution Control Center.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to come here and do this presentation. So I'm just going to jump right into my PowerPoint. And so our first slide shows our staff at the wastewater plant. There's 7 of us, including myself. You could see the licenses. Well, actually, that's not up there, Nick. But we have 4 out of us 7 have Class 3 operator licenses, which is what's required to run the plant. So we're pretty lucky to have that kind of staff at the plant. Two guys have their Class 2, and then our newest operator, he's only been at the plant for a couple years, but he's already gotten his CDL since he's been there, and he's working on obtaining his Class 1 operator license, which I'm hopeful and confident that he'll have it this year. So every year, I think for the last 5 or 6 years, I've done a little bit of the history of the plant just to kind of bring newer council members kind of up to speed where we're at. The plant was initially built in the 50s. It was first discussed in the 30s when wastewater was discharging directly to the Sandusky River at that time. So when it was built in 50s and came online in December of 56, we only had primary treatment, which is basically like screening the 2 clarifiers that you can see on the picture and then out to the river. So it was better than nothing, but not very good. And then the first real upgrade was in 68 where they added secondary treatment. So the plant kind of looked what it looks like today in this picture, but this is after the 88 upgrade as well. In the 60s, they added, like I said, secondary treatment, chlorine for disinfection because there was no disinfection used at the time. And then in the 80s, they added a 3rd digester and a new chlorine facility and the maintenance building. In 2015, the city decided to revise the long-term control plan. The long-term control plan at that time called for complete separation. So after seeing that the city didn't want to separate downtown just because of the mess that it would make and the burden that it would put on all the local business, it was decided to only do a partial separation, so leave the downtown area combined. And the plant itself was kind of looked at as in 3 different phases. So phase 1 upgrade would be updated the screening and aeration system. And then the 2020-2021 project was to increase the plant capacity from 4 million gallons to 13 million gallons, which included several new buildings. I have another slide that'll kind of show some of that. And then the 3rd phase of that, which is we're in the planning part of it now, it was to be an EQ basin, which is what was agreed to in the long-term control plan. But since then, we've kind of changed our mind on how we can treat stormwater a little better, a higher quantity of stormwater and more efficiently as the cloth media high rate treatment plants. That'll allow us to treat 24 million gallons on a continuous basis, where if you put an EQ basin in and you have a storm event, once that EQ basin is full and the plant is running at max capacity, you're kind of stuck. You really can't do anything with the additional stormwater, where now with this high rate treatment, we can continue to treat 24 million gallons a day. And then if we have a rain event the next day, we can still treat that as well, where an EQ basin, like we had this several days of rain, it would have been full and wouldn't have really done us any good past day 1. So these are a couple pictures from the 2015 upgrade. The pictures on the left, the top left is our old bar screens, and the bottom left are the screens that were put in 2015. Before this upgrade, the screens had inch gaps in between each bar, so that would allow for solids up to an inch wide or to get through the plant. And it really did affect the downstream equipment as far as pumps and treatment that we could achieve. And on the middle picture is the aeration system before the upgrade. You can see the bubbles on the top of that. Like that bottom middle picture shows the coarse bubble diffusers, how turbulent the water was, where if you look at the pictures on the right, the bottom right is with the same air on, but it's the fine tube diffusers that you can see in the top right. And that the more fine bubbles gives for better oxygen transfer, so you're using a lot less energy to put the same amount of dissolved oxygen in the water, which is to meet our requirements. And this is from the 21 upgrade. You can see all the buildings that are highlighted in green are all new buildings from that project. Several of those are electrical buildings, and then one's also our plant generator. The previous plant generator was a manual transfer, and it would only run about half the plant at a time. So if we had a power outage, at least 2 people had to come in, transfer power over to the generator. But like I said, you could only run half of the plant at a time. Now with the new generator, it runs the whole plant, automatically transfers. If it senses power out, within 30 seconds, it's transferred over to the generator. And then once it sees at least 30 minutes of stable, normal power, it switches back to the regular power source. So a big reason why we were able to go from 4 to 13 million gallons in this project was like towards the bottom right, that round tank, that's the secondary clarifier. We were able to add a lot more capacity by adding that tank, which is the same capacity as our previous 3 combined. Another thing we did, the square tank in the middle that's highlighted in green, that's an anaerobic tank, where that allowed us to achieve biological nutrient removal, where before all we could do to remove phosphorus from the water was add ferrous chloride. But now we can, by basically starving the back half of the plant of oxygen and just keeping our solids in suspension, we can, basically the bugs are more active, use up more nitrogen, ammonia, and phosphorus. So we can achieve that as opposed to just adding more chemicals to get the same result. Oh, and we switched from chlorine to UV in this last project, which was really nice because obviously chlorine's a pretty hazardous chemical. And we also had to have sodium thiosulfate to get rid of the chlorine before the river. So it was nice to get rid of both those chemicals. This is another thing that we did in the 21 project. We updated our SCADA system. So this is what we can view the SCADA system from anywhere that we have internet. So like I could pull it up on my phone. So if we get an alarm after hours, I'm able to pull up our SCADA system, see what's going on, reset pumps, close gates, or reset a fault. Just do whatever we might need to do from home as opposed to going in, which is really nice. And allows us to just, like I said, view real-time data wherever we're at. So I mentioned in the 15 project, we added a blower, and then in 2021, we added a second blower. These replaced blowers that were original from the plant. And the reason I have the slide up there is because I always like to mention that, so the electric bills for the wastewater plant averaged about $16,000 a month before the 2015 project. And we added the high efficiency blower. It was oversized for what we needed at the time, but we could run it at its lowest capabilities, and that still cut our power bills from $16,000 a month down to about $10,000 a month. And then in the 21 project, we added a smaller high efficiency blower, which is what we run on a normal basis unless we have a rain event where we need more air. But our electric bills since then have dropped down to about $7,500 a month. So they've definitely paid for themselves. So I had mentioned too, like as opposed to the EQ basin, we were looking at this cloth media high rate treatment plant. This is it's gonna be at a remote location, so everything is gonna be automated and it needs to work when we need it to work. Obviously, a rain event just doesn't come when we want it. So before the long-term control plan was revised in 2015, we had looked at high rate treatment, but the technology was just really, it wasn't where it is today. There was a lot of labor that would go into it because you're talking, like I said, you're talking about a plant that isn't gonna run all the time. It's only gonna run in storm events and things like that, so. But like since 2015, the technology has really come a long way, which is what made us look away from the or the EQ basin to this high rate treatment. And I have this short video just to I know Mayor touched on it on his speech the other day, but this has a little bit more information on what the high rate treatment can do. I just thought it might be beneficial for everybody to see. It's only like a 2-minute video, if it'll play, so let's see.
Aqua Aerobic Systems cloth media filters have provided the solution for high-performance tertiary treatment for more than 20 years. This technology is capable of low-level phosphorus removal and producing reuse quality effluent. With more than 1,000 units installed, satisfied customers around the world realize performance benefits, cost savings, and ease of operation and maintenance with the AquaDisc compared to other filtration technologies. The main advantage of Aqua Aerobic technology compared to other filters is the exclusive OptiFiber cloth media. Engineered exclusively for water and wastewater applications, only OptiFiber provides maximum solids removal over a wide range of particle sizes, under a variety of conditions. OptiFiber media is suitable for virtually any application and is an integral component of Aqua Aerobic Systems' complete line of cloth media filtration products, including the original AquaDisc. Operation of the AquaDisc is accomplished in 3 phases: filtration, backwash, and solids wasting. During filtration, wastewater enters the filter tank by gravity, flowing over the influent weir and completely submerging the static cloth media discs. As influent passes through the cloth on both sides of each disc, solids accumulate on the media and a mat is formed. Filtrate is collected in the center tube, then directed to the effluent chamber and over the effluent weir. Head loss created by the solids mat causes the tank water level to rise, resulting in backwashing or cleaning of the cloth media. At a predetermined level or time, the backwash cycle automatically initiates. Discs rotate slowly and solids are vacuumed from the surface by liquid suction on both sides of each disc. During backwash, discs are cleaned in multiples of 2, controlled by the designated backwash control valve. The backwash shoes make firm contact with the cloth media, maximizing effective cleaning. Backwash water is typically directed to the plant's headworks, while normal filtration continues without interruption. Due to the vertical orientation of the cloth media, heavier solids may settle to the bottom of the tank. These solids are automatically pumped on an intermittent basis by a solids waste control valve back to the headworks, digester, or other solids collection area of the treatment plant. The AquaDisc cloth media filter requires no moving parts during filtration, encompasses the outside-in filtration flow path, and is fully automatic with a PLC-based control system. A history of exceptional operating experience and reliability make the AquaDisc the leading tertiary filter on the market today.
Yeah, so that's just, so Aqua Aerobics, they make several different things. This was more the AquaDisc, but ours is gonna be, is called the Aqua Storm, but it's similar, same principle. In addition to this part of for the high rate treatment, there'll be like screening in front of it. And then after the filter treatment, there'll be disinfection. We're hoping to do UV. And like it was saying, when you pump down those solids, those will go back into the main trunk line and then they'll come to the plant. And anything that's screened out in front of the filters will all go back into the main interceptor and come to the plant. And I know the mayor mentioned this too the other day, like having this high rate treatment plant out at a remote location like it'll be is gonna save millions of dollars on a pipeline, taking it from this remote site to the plant, which was the initial plan. So I think it's going to be a win-win as far as that, as opposed to the EQ basin. So moving on, this is a page out of our MPDS permit. We have permits for the plant and the city landfill where this is just from the EPA, and it spells out all the sampling requirements that we have to test for. It tells you how often, your limit, how the sample is collected, whether it's just a grab sample or composite. And we have one of these pages for each location in the plant. So like your water coming in, water going out upstream and downstream of the river, our biosolids and everything like that. And then the landfill has its locations as well that we have to sample for. These permits are good for 5-year cycles. And then so when the permit's about 4 years old, there's additional sampling that's usually done by the EPA. And then they issue your new permit after this one's up, so. So throughout the year, we have our maintenance guys, electrician and mechanic, and they service the city's 18 different lift stations. And then they're doing, this is just a couple, like the top left and the bottom right are 2 different pumps that they pulled from lift stations. They can do cleaning as far as like cleaning out clogs or basic maintenance, but if it's anything above that, we need to send it out. The picture in the middle there is just the guys were adjusting like tolerances between the pumps and the wear plates. And I didn't really keep track of how many times they pulled pumps throughout the year, because sometimes it's just as simple as a pump's clogged, pull it, clean it, put it back in service. So it's a regular thing for them. So speaking of that, this is our new maintenance truck from 24. This is the first truck that we've had at the plant with a crane, because before what they were doing is bringing our loaders out to lift stations, and we had a crane that was attached to it, which I don't know. It wasn't very good. This is really nice. And this picture is actually from 2025. We ordered this truck in January of 24, but it didn't get delivered until like the last week of 24, December like 18th or something like that. So anyway, we used it already this year, and it's really working out well. Also in 24, we had Great Lakes Construction. They came and they did a lot of masonry work, tuck pointing, replacing brick that had cracked or popped. And they also did, and this next slide is our dock right outside the main building. It had been in really bad shape for a long, long time, and we had a couple other contractors look at it over the years, but it's actually it's an open pit, which is our influent wet well. So a lot of people didn't really want to mess with it because it's only like 4 inches thick. But what these guys did is they chiseled like 1.5 inches to 2 inches all the way across it, and then they resurfaced the whole thing, which you can see on the right. It turned out really well and is holding up really well so far. So also last year we purchased 2 new to us international tractors. They're both 2019. That's for our land application. They're replacing 2 1995 international trucks that both had over 500,000 miles on them. So we're going to be getting rid of those. And these are also automatics, where the other one were manual, so it's a lot easier for our operators to drive. And speaking of our biosolids, obviously we bring in a lot of solids to the plant. It's a continuous thing, and getting rid of them is becoming more of a challenge because the EPA is really limiting us to what we can do on these farm fields. The other alternatives to land application are incineration and just taking it to a landfill, which you have to have, like we land apply liquid solids, so our biosolids that we land apply are anywhere from 5 to 8% solids. To take them to the landfill, you have to get it up to about 15 to 20%, which is expensive in itself because you have to have like machine equipment to do that. And then once you do that, you still have to pay the landfill for every load that you take. So, I've spoken to cities that are similar to us in size, and you're looking at $500,000 disposal fees every year, not to mention just to get the equipment to get it up to the solids we would need. You'd be looking at an initial $1 million investment. So that's why I think it's important to keep up with our land application equipment and keep going the route we are, just because I personally feel like it's the best thing for the environment. Like, we don't need sludge filling up our landfills. But just to go through a little bit of that process, like the top left picture is the lagoon where we pump solids to all year round from our digesters. And then they sit in there until we go to land apply them, which is usually in July, August, and November when wheat comes off and then when beans come off in the fall. But you can see, so the top middle picture is after the lagoon's mixed up. And then the next picture is, so our tractors pump the sludge out of the lagoon into our semis. Semis haul it to the field. It's pumped over then to the ag chem in that bottom middle picture. And then the last picture you can kind of see to the right of the ag chem where we've already land applied and so forth. So we have quite a few local fields that we haul to. I think when farmers initially, they don't know what to think, but then once they learn a little bit more about it, they realize it's a win-win because it's free to them and it's a benefit to us. Obviously, we need places to take it. So, and with the EPA kind of limiting how much you can put on a field, we're finding a need every year to get more and more fields approved by the EPA. So for 2024, this is some of our numbers. So the solids are pumped from the bottom of our primaries into our digesters, and we pumped 4,153,000 gallons over to the digesters last year. Then that is pumped out to the lagoons where we dewater as much as we can, like any water that comes to the top, we drain off and run back through the front of the plant. So we ended up hauling 1.8 million gallons to farm fields, which ended up being, when you dry that out, it equates to 362 dry tons. And that was applied to 104 acres. So that you can kind of do the math there. We're about 3.5 tons per acre, where if you go back 5 to 10 years, we were almost always at 5 tons an acre or more. But they keep limiting what you're allowed to put on as far as based on nitrogen and phosphorus in the sludge. So it makes it a lot more difficult if you can only put 3.5 tons per acre as opposed to 5. So you need that much more acreage to do. Also, we have the brush pile out there at the plant. Took in over 4,000 cubic yards in 24. Tawa mulch out of Findlay, they ground it up. And we usually keep 20% of that pile to give away to the public. And then so it came out to about 1,500 cubic yards that we gave away last year in mulch. And that's just from what they ground up. And then the city tree crew brings additional mulch in all year. And then obviously the leaf pile as well. We compost that every year. That's given away October 1st. We took in over 396 cubic yards. It broke down to 175 cubic yards. So this is just a chart that shows the flows and the total rainfall for 24. One thing I thought was interesting, and it's kind of shows that what the city's doing is working. If you look at the rain from 2024, we had 54.1 inches as opposed to 40 inches in 23, but the flow through the plant actually went down. So I think that kind of shows that, what the city's doing, these sewer separation projects are working because you're keeping out more I&I from the system. This is just a page of some additional things that we accomplished in 2024. I'm not going to read them, but just to touch on a couple of them. We did have the sludge building replaced, the roof replaced. And like I mentioned, we obtained 3 new farm fields to land apply to. And we also, our DMRQAs are something that our lab has to do every year. They're basically, the EPA sends us samples for everything that we run in-house, but we don't know what the values are. So we have to run them, send them in, and then they basically grade us. We have to fall into a certain range, so we're not too far away from what the actual number was. So, and that's something that we do every year, and our lab guys do a great job as far as that goes. And if you look at some of these other ones, I ran 300 different suspended solids tests, over 300 CBODs, and everything that we did all year. We never did have a violation from the EPA as far as our MPDS permit goes. So, and also while I'm here, I might as well mention the downspout removal program. So if anyone has downspouts that go into the ground, just give me a call. If you're not sure where they go, give me a call. We can figure it out. There's grant money available up to $1,000 per house to reimburse you for disconnecting those. And that is pretty much it.
Great.
Thing that's amazing to me is that 7 guys, right, or 7 workers, sorry, didn't mean to sound gender biased there, keep this plant open and running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes you get an emergency and your alarm goes off on your phone and you have to get up and rush in there and make sure everything's working.
Yeah, we have a great staff too. I mean, over the years, I've worked with a lot of great guys there and definitely made it a great place to work and kept it running really well, so. And I'm appreciative of the city to put in the money because this last project, from what the plant looked like when I started compared to what it is now, is just, it's crazy. Just the technology that's there. A lot of the equipment we replaced in 2020 was original equipment from the 50s. So it was due. But
So anyway, we're lucky to have
Yeah.
you and your crew like on the job.
Yeah, thank you for everything you do.
thank you.
Okay.
I just want to add, and first off, again, very much appreciate Kevin and his entire crew. I'll let you know that they are happy to tour you around anytime. So if anyone's interested, it is interesting just to see what that process looks like. Really, you wouldn't think it, but there's so much technology that goes through there. And it serves a vital purpose in our community. I did want to mention, because I'm involved in this as well, when we mentioned the landfill, I think I've maybe brought this up to council before, what we're really talking about is a landfill the city had owned, or still owns. We own the land still, but it's not been a landfill in more than 40, 50 years almost. So it was decommissioned many, many years ago, and we still continue to work with the EPA on what needs to be done in order for us to completely end the testing that's necessary there, to make sure that there's no harmful runoffs or anything that are going into a wetland that then drains into the Sandusky River and ultimately goes to Lake Erie. So we continue to work on that, and so far we've been working on a plan on hopefully ending that testing soon. I'm not going to make any promises there. There's always kind of things changing as we work with EPA on that. But between our long-term control plan and what we're doing at the former landfill site, a lot of work with the EPA this last couple of years to get those shored up. So just to reiterate, I suppose, we have nothing to do with the landfill that is that's in Seneca County. This is a completely separate landfill that this is related to.
Anybody else? Yes.
I totally want to take the tour, please. I love this kind of stuff. Yeah. But I just want to say thank you because you guys do so much for our city, and I think it's underappreciated in lots of ways. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that about the tours. If anybody's interested, just call the plant number, and we give tours quite a bit, so it's not a big deal to.
Cheyenne, go in July. That's when I went, middle of July. City Ministry. Tough day.
Okay.
How they do it.
If nothing else,
I
then.
just have one more question, Mayor.
Oh, yes.
So how much, this last rainfall we had, how much more water did we take in than you currently would? I'm just curious with what we just currently had.
So our normal flows on a regular day are anywhere from 2 to 3 million gallons. The plant was maxed out from pretty much Friday on. It had over 13 million running through the plant the whole time. Plus, CSOs were active as well. So, I mean, that was a really hard rain that we had.
You're right.
We had over 3 inches total, but so, yeah. That is a perfect example of where the EQ basin would only help for a day. Sure. Because if you can't drain it and treat that water as soon as the storm event's over before the next one, it's just a pond at that point, so.
Law Director. Yes.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my question, Kevin. So that in the future, when we have the HRT in place, how would that have worked on like this last weekend?
So the plant we'd be required to take as much as we can through the plant because obviously the plant full treatment is better than anything else. So we would be required to take at least 13 million through the plant And then once that's hit, then the rest would be diverted to that high rate treatment. And that would be able to treat like 24 million gallons a day. So it would continue to treat constantly until that rain event's over, or until the plant has capacity to take everything in the line. So there'll be a weir set up between the plant and the high rate treatment. It'll be adjustable, you know, to make sure the plant's got its 13 before the high rate treatment goes active.
Just so you all are aware, you know, the engineers currently working on the plans. And I think Matt said 50% design at this
Yeah,
point.
we just received the 50% drawings last Thursday. And I think April 17th is our next meeting to kind of review those plans, so.
Then you'll hear Matt talk too about the main interceptor, and that's linked to this. And if you haven't paid attention, or haven't caught on, to get the water over to the HRT, we're running that under the river. So that will be quite the project in the future. Be very interesting to see how all that plays out. But
And then if I can add, council, you may remember last year you had purchased some land on Water Street. That is going to be the location for this. And so, again, there's a cost savings that we have by going to this system versus what we were initially planning on. Even the purchase of that land there is all factored in, and you know, very much fit in with the, you know, that was the kind of the ideal site for us. And luckily we had some good landowners that we could work with on that. But again, that all factors into this cost savings that we're having through this project.
Okay. Well, if nothing else, then we'll move on to our next presentation. So introducing.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.
Introducing Deb Reamer, head of the Human Resources Department. Department of One.
Department of One. It's funny, I get this question a lot. How many people are in HR? I said, party of one. I want to thank you as well for letting me present this evening for the HR department. And it's funny to think about when I was city administrator, when I remember them saying, you've got the keys to the city, you're in charge of all this. And I'm like, okay. And one thing was the landfill. Oh, after that first year, I've been here since 2011. After that next year, don't worry, we're not going to be testing anymore. Here we are, 2025. A lot of history there. Thanks, Nick. All right, we will start here. It doesn't have my fire in there. Can I go back? I don't know if the sound is off. Well, that was supposed to be a big part of that, so I'm very disappointed. I worked hard on that, and it didn't show up, so I don't know if he's got in that. All right. HR puts out a lot of fires, I want to say, okay, in any given day. Sometimes it's just as easy as taking the time to answer somebody right away. Don't make them wait and wonder. There's nothing worse than that, than making somebody think, even the public as well. They want an answer. They don't understand what you're doing, and they don't understand your workload, but they do want that answer. They want it quick. So show everybody respect by being a very good listener, and I've learned that in all my studies in HR, that being a good listener is key. 75% of the position, they say, is being a good listener. Praise publicly, criticize quietly and privately. And I will tell you, when I was interviewed for city administrator when I started, I can remember Mayor Boroff saying, okay, if I made a mistake or if there was an issue, how would you handle it? Would you come out and tell me? I said, not in public, but I certainly would tell you afterwards, sir. No question's a bad question. A lot of people are afraid to ask those things. Don't be afraid ever to ask, because I'm sure everybody has the same question you do. They're just too afraid to ask. City of Tiffin, everybody serves a very important role here. Some are very specific, as you know. I'll go through those. Every department's important to make this city function. As you see, that sewer department, I thought that was a phenomenal presentation. They do not get enough credit for what they do, for all the individuals out there. And they have a lot of long-term staff, and we're grateful for that. We provide our citizens the best possible place to live, work, play, relax, and enjoy. The city, the light never goes off, I want to say, in the city or in my department. City has 171 employees during the 2025-26 2024 year. Summer's our busiest time, as you can anticipate. We're bringing up right now. Bryce gave me the first new employee for this year already. Beside, we have 2 that were coming back from last year, so their letters have been sent, but we're gearing up for that. So we're looking at maybe possibly 28 returning and many new staff that'll be coming that way. So they provide for the parks, public works, maintenance department. Employed were 129 full-time and 42 of the part-time employees that I'm referring to. As of 2025, we currently have 132 employees. 10 are part-time, which includes all of you as city council members. No seasonal help yet, but soon, as I said, that'll be forthcoming. During all this time, the light is always on, and we like to turn it off sometimes, but sometimes we're not able to do that. I'm gonna go over the departments because they certainly deserve the respect here. City departments include the Mayor Wilkinson. We have our city administrator, Nick Dutro. I tried to put their areas of expertise in here. Tiffin Foster Municipal Support, they have 10 employees in all different areas pertaining to what they do or why they do it. Very busy, you know, they used to be down here. And I just talked about that, no kidding, it was last Friday, saying Fridays was always a treat day, that they would always stand in the hall, collect the money, right? And that would be the day that everybody was like rejoicing that we were getting a flow of people and heard a lot of things that maybe we didn't want to hear in that hallway. So now they're in their own building. This is our group of, they have such a good time in dispatchers, and I know they're getting ready to celebrate Dispatchers Week, and well deserved. You know, they have a good day and they have a bad day, but they're very good at what they do. And I must say, when we hire them, it's not easy to get somebody in that position because it takes a special human being to handle the good and the bad that day. And there's more bad than good, but they do a wonderful job as that. And I think a lot has helped. We have Candy Cunningham as their supervisor. I think that's done great things. She gets them together. They do a lot of teamwork. They have meetings together, not just meetings, but fun meetings where they build things together. And that's where you see these individuals on here, especially the bunny. I like the bunny. Engineering has 4 employees with different roles, as you can see. Again, they amaze me. They amaze me what they do and how they get it done in the time slot that they have. And they just seem to just get it done without a whole lot of fussing about it. And they're always in demand. It's not a 8 to 5, it's not a 6 to 2, it's a 24-hour. Finance department, very busy over there. Tax time right now. We'll have a line stand outside, right, Kathy? Pretty soon they'll stand down. They mark off the sidewalk. That's always fun to see. We have the finance director sitting here with us tonight. Payables, payroll, pension benefits manager, sewer, tax department, 7 total employees over there. Tiffin Fire Department, we've got 36 fires. We have 2 chiefs. We have 1 administrative assistant, and you can see down below in that bottom picture, we even save ducks and kitties. Just letting you know that. And actually, that was a kitty cat that was saved that day, and somebody actually adopted that kitty in the city. So I was glad to hear that. But yeah, they're always busy too, as you know. We don't have to say that. I'm gonna let them sing their own praises, and they did, and they deserve that as well. Okay. Tiffin Parks and Rec, their presentation was wonderful. I mean, their video says so much. I get the privilege of getting to see these individuals when they come in that day. It's a lot of fun to get to learn who they are, where they're from, and they really enjoy what they do. When I talk to them, they really have become great friends and great camaraderie with all of them, and they support each other. It's nice now to see that skating area out there. So not only the summertime is consumed with all this fun, we have the wintertime with that skating. Tiffin Police Department, great group of individuals. I won't say a name tonight, but I was getting gas this evening, and he doesn't know that, but he is in this picture. He was getting gas, I think, for an individual that ran out of gas. And I looked over and went, thumbs up, officer, and I gave the name. So that was fun to see what we do, City Serve. We have Becca Tim down there, which was just promoted to our sergeant. Great to see her in there. SRT, great group of people. I can remember when I first started this SRT group, when I was here, probably not even 6 months, skirt and high heels, came down the hall. They were all in their gear, getting to run out the hall. And I said, hey, and I made them all stop. And the chief turned around, he goes, what? And I said, y'all have a mother, y'all have a family, we care about you, be safe. Thanks, Mrs. Reamer. The chief was not happy with me for that, but not at all. But I'll never forget that day. They all turned around like, we're in a hurry, we're on a mission. But I wanted to make sure we put them in here for sure too, because they do a lot that we're not aware about, Secret Service there. Tiffin Public Works, best picture I could get, but it's a good one. It's really a good one. 15 total employees in here. And I think it's fun as long as I've been here to see the people that have come and the people that have gone in that department. This here's a nice picture of the wastewater pollution center. 7 employees. Like I said, Kevin did a phenomenal job on there. Ins and outs for 2024, new hires, 12 full-time, part-time 22. Those are those individuals that come in for the Parks and Rec. Returning staff, 12 seasonal. 2024, the outs, full-time were 11, part-time were 3, includes part-time 1 termination, 2 resignations, includes full-time, we have 2 retirees, 6 resigned, and 3 terminations as well in there. This is where the fun stuff begins, okay? These are the cost savings that I think no one really sees. We ended up having a PERP BWC audit last week, which was a surprise. I've been here 14 years, we have not had that since the time I started, but I do attend a lot of HR meetings, and in there they had said, be aware what happens next. Well, little did I know, 4 weeks later they'd be here, okay, and they were. And they visited Kevin's plant as well on that Tuesday and spent over 4.5 hours with him on that Tuesday and Thursday. They didn't spend as much time with me, but we both did very well with our audits. But this is information that I say is internal that not everybody sees. Decreased frequency, these are your cost claims for your employees. 10 claims in 2022 to just 6 in 2024. That's great. You always want to see it go down, not go up. Lost time on there, medical only totals. 2022 lost time, all 3 years on there. I'm glad to see that that's a 0. Medical only in 2022 was 10. Those are medical only claims, no lost time. As you see, 2023, we only have 7, and you see 6. And that's what we strive for. I think the important thing is when somebody sustains an injury, I think the worst thing you can do, because I have people call me and ask me questions from other establishments, you need to get with those individuals right away. Don't make them wait. Don't make them question who they go to. Don't make them question how they're going to be taken care of. And don't make them question later about that claim. Okay, what's going to happen? That's why we're here, to help you with that. That customer service is key for individuals. Losses decreased 33% from 2022 to 2025. Total modified losses, that's the losses when somebody sustains an injury, the medical cause, compensation, every claim occurring. What happens with that is when you have a claim that comes into place, it's the ladder of the 4. So what happens in that first year, you get that claim. In that first year, it still accounts for things, but they really look towards the 5th year. So when you're looking, I'm a BWC guru, but a geek. What that means is when you're looking at the reserves, if somebody has an injury, that's important for me to know, like a spinal lumbar is an extreme expense, things like that. But what it means is if they sustain an injury, even if it's a high injury claim, we know history making that after 4 years going on that 5th year, it's going to go out of our reserves. That's a good thing. Because if you have a high claim, which we have had, it makes those rates increase, what we're going to financially have to pay, okay? And that's why I need to get the communication with the supervisors and the managers to let them know, I need to know right away when something happens. And I make the mayor know or the city administrator, we have great communication to say, in case our costs occur, and I tell Kathy, in case you see a big influx of these increase in our rates, this is the reason why. I don't disclose the person, I don't disclose the names, but I do disclose the circumstances. So we can't help that all the time. All we can do is try to protect them when they're here working with us. This other one, TML, the total modified for 2024 is well under the TLL, which is called anticipated cost. What that means is the Bureau sets us up and they set a certain rate for a municipality. And they say, you should be right here. You should have numerous fatalities because of what happens in the world today, which is sad to say. You should also have numerous injuries, okay, because of what they deal with, the fire, the police, anybody that's out there, confined space, things like that. I'm very happy to say we don't have that because of the training. I think we have phenomenal training. We have phenomenal department heads that really communicate with their staff, and they can come to myself or anybody and ask some questions. But We are well under those reserves, which helps in your cost. So you're going to see the TML, total modified losses, in that amount was $215,480, went down to $145,000. That's a lot. On here, the experience modifier, this is the total percentage that's applied to us. So that's when I tell you, when you look at that overall rate, if you're below a 1, which we are a 1 here, that just doesn't happen for a municipality. They don't come up with those records, and they say, it's great who we are. So it's not me, it's the department heads, and it's the individuals that take safety serious here. So when you see that 1 rate, that's fantastic, because I don't have all the reports, but some of them are predicted as 7.8, 9.2. We're a 1 or below, okay? That's how you see that savings and cost. So when you see these charts, the 2022, we are 1.07. 2023, I know that situation, and then 2024, we are 9.7. Now we're a 1, which is hard to beat, the 1. So city employees, keep up that great work, and managers. Based on good claims management, City of Tiffin qualifies for a group retro, which you get in a group and department where you qualify just like these individuals. This could be schools, this could be other municipalities, this could be people that don't have a whole lot of severity. You have to be privileged enough to be in this program. And we have been in this program since 2016. I had to fight real hard for that. We're in it, but it can take just 1 claim to knock us right out of that, okay? That's why when I say we need to respond right away, we can't wait 24, 48 hours. We need to get with that right away. And city has earned the refunds below. Refunds 2016 through now, you can see over 119,000. Refunds expected late April, 24,645. So again, it makes a difference. And these are things you don't see. It's all kind of internal that we have to do. Additional savings, group retro participates in this, so we get 10,430 in the following. You've got safety council. I go to safety council every single month, okay? And that's something you can't miss. I only missed 1 year. I only missed this month because of an emergency in my family, but you have to attend those and then to get those discounts. If you don't attend, you don't get those discounts. So it's very important to be a participant in these programs. And I also go to Safety Congress, which I go, I mean, I've been here only 14 years, but I've probably gone 27 years. I go there too to get the discounts, all right, to get those programs and get scanned. So that's part of that savings. Lapse free, that's when I get on my managers and I tell them, don't delay. I need to know immediately, because 24 hours is 24 hours, extends to 48. So in a claim, that's what I need to know. I've had situations where I don't even know right away. It'll be 24 to 48 hours. That's too late for me, because already BWC's on me. I want to know what happened. I want to know what was the time, what was the injury, where are they at, have they returned to work? All these questions, which are literally this long. No kidding. I have to answer those, normally in 24 hours. What I try to do is have those answers before they ask me. That's part of my job, I feel. So that's why I try to get with the supervisors to find that out ahead of time. So there's no lag time at all, okay? Early pay discount, we've got that in there. HR duties. Every day is a gift, honestly. You just never know how much gift you're gonna get or how less. But I do feel I'm very privileged to be here and the people I work with. I feel it as a privilege, and get to know them as their families. And I feel like I've watched them grow up. 14 years is a long time. Kindness costs nothing, okay? I think it's very important to be able to share circumstances with employees and let them know that you're human, just like they are. Things happen. I won't go into details, but BWC administrator, many hats in HR that you just have to do, the unemployment, communications, point of contact, employee issues, benefits, enrollments, changes, confidant regarding HR issues. Those are things on my job. We do an operational dashboard, and there's so many things I can't put on there because I would never disclose what you came to talk to me about. Sometimes it could be 10 minutes I talk to somebody. I've had times it's been 2.5 hours. And if nights, the carry on. That's okay, because that's what we should be doing for our employees. Enter employees into an employee navigator system. That's great that they can go online and make their changes. Interviewing, we got a lot of things coming up right now. We have an opening in the Public Works Department you may have seen that came down last Friday. As of last Friday night, we had 19, and then we got one that was later Friday. I say Friday night because as a business close, I call it. We have 20, and we get some really good applicants out there. So I'm really excited to see that. Really excited to go through that. So Brandon and I will be working through those. Consistency is the key to treatment and completing tasks. Don't say you're going to do something if you don't. And if you do for one, you need to do for all, because people know. They definitely do. I work in HR. Absolutely nothing scares me. People ask me. I said, bring it at me because I'm sure it's something I've already heard. And there you go. I tell people, believe in yourself, anything's possible. Okay, all right. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Deb. Deb and I have had some nice conversations over the year and a half or year and a quarter. And truth to the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I've called Deb on the weekends and she answers and said, what can I do for you? So, awesome.
Thank you for everything, Deb. You can tell, it's really cool to see how passionate you are. You can tell the passion behind what you do and how much you truly like doing it. I think that's very genuine. And so thank you for all of that.
I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate all of you. I'm gonna leave and,
Please, yeah, get home.
thank you.
Any other questions for Deb before she takes off? If not, then that concludes my report, Madam President.
All right. Clerk of Council Ann Forrest,
No report, Madam President.
Director of Finance Kathy Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't have a report this evening, but I did want to call your attention to the two suspensions that we had this evening in the legislation, ordinance 2530 and 2531. 2530 is about the fire claims escrow. And I just wanted to stress that this is not city funds. This is to take care of properties that have had a fire. We get insurance money for these properties, and we hold it in a separate account at a separate bank account. And once the property has been properly taken care of, then we can release those funds. So what we need to do is just appropriate those funds in the budget, and then we can show the disbursement on the books for the correct accounting of that. And then ordinance 2531 is to appropriate a fire grant for equipment so that they can buy sets of turnout gear. And that was from the Ohio State Fire Marshal.
Thank you. Any questions on those? All right. Thank you, Kathy. Director of Law, Zach Fowler.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have just a few things. One, just a reminder, your road and bridge levy on the ballot. Early voting starts tomorrow. And so just again, for the public, that is we're taking the road and bridge levy, which is a 0.25% income tax. That is currently a 5-year period, and we're making that continuous. That's the ask to the public, is to make it more or less permanent income tax. And then I have a few things that I wanted to get in front of you because these are some economic development things that I'm expecting are going to come through. One has to do with some energy renewable financing that there's it's the Gibson Hotel, the Tiffin Boutique Hotel here downtown. They have arranged for financing for that. And you'll get a petition next council meeting to go through this process. So with that, I thought it was a good time to just touch on some of the things that are in place, as well as the pace, and just cover some of these things because you may get some additional asks throughout the year on adjusting or adding to them. So the first one's the TIF, and this tax increment financing. It's one of the tools that you have here at City Council. So this affects real estate taxes. So generally speaking, when the property is taxed, various taxing authorities, the city, school districts, county, et cetera, receive money out of that property tax. The TIF is to lock in a certain amount that is exclusively directed to the city, although a portion of that usually still goes to the schools. Okay. And so the idea is it's not a tax abatement, it's not an increase in a tax, it's capturing property that will go up in value because it's being developed, and to capture money that the city can use for its public improvements. Okay, so take a farmland, commercial development's going to go in there, and we're going to have to, as a city, add in certain public improvements, road, sewers, those kind of things. So to help pay for it, we capture that new value, and instead of that money going to the various taxing authorities, we direct it to the city. Okay, so latest one that we had done was out at the Willows. Fairlane Road was put in, Progress Parkway was put in right there at the Willows. In order to put that in and some other public improvements, a TIF's been put in place so that these special revenues come to the city. And Kathy will tell you, that one hasn't worked out to where it's 100% paid for it, but we do get a chunk of money towards that then we've used to pay on the loan that the city took out to pay for those public improvements. So the next slide will actually kind of show you the model for that. So that orange area, that's the existing value of the property now. So take a piece of property, and say it's currently worth $50,000. So let's say undeveloped land. You lock it in at that point. And then your TIF is for then that new value that comes over time. Whatever that value is, that's what's getting taxed the same way the rest of the property is taxed. Nothing changes. But that new value, that's the money that comes back to the city. And it's based under the law. You can take 75% for over 10 years. So then that way that still carves out some money for the school districts. If you want 100%, then you got to get some cooperation with the schools, and you can extend it up to then 30 years. So that gives you a longer time period to allocate money back to the city. Usually on those deals with the schools, you're allocating just some of that money back to the school. At the end of that, when that 30 years is up, let's say, that blue area, then it just goes back to regular taxation. So the TIF's over, there's no more money being directed back to the city. It's just now the city and all the other taxing authorities share in that money. Okay. So that's the TIF model. Any questions on that before I jump to the next thing? You look like you have a question, Councilmember Horniman, but I didn't know. Okay. All right. And so, and I should note too, then at the end, if there is money left in that TIF fund, then that goes to the city's general fund. But kind of your goal is not to have a bunch left over. Usually the idea is you've used that money for the public improvement. So very common in a kind of a commercial development area, you want to capture some money for land that's being improved. The next one, the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Area. So that's a tax abatement. And there's areas in your city that you identify that is lacking investment. So you may have older homes, properties that are not getting maintained. You have areas of land that's undeveloped. So this is to encourage it by giving a tax abatement for the value of that new improvement. So it starts with a housing survey. You kind of identify an area of the city. Some municipalities just cover the entire city. But you identify places where you want that to happen. And then you set the rules on what that abatement looks like. So again, you're giving a break, and so you're looking, could be up to 100%. You're usually looking at somewhere in the 10 to 15 year range as well. For residential properties, the process for them is pretty much straightforward. They make the application to the housing officer, which you've designated as TSEP. They make the application with TSEP. for this work they've done. And then for that, the value of that work, that gets a tax abatement, usually for up to 10 years. For the CRAs that are post 94, which is our CRA number 5, in those areas, the commercial, industrial property owners, they make the application, but then you as city council enter into an agreement with them on what that is going to be, again, based on the terms that you set in the ordinance. But you're usually, again, 10 to 15 years and up to 100%. For the pre-94 ones, those commercial, industrial can apply, but city council doesn't need to reach an agreement. They just follow the terms of that. So the next couple of slides is just to show you where those are. So CRA number 1 is in mostly the downtown area. CRA number 2, that is up at Eagle Rock. So that is in that area of the city in the north. Number 3 is the next slide. That is covers a little bit over there on the eastern end, but that's your kind of the Ballwright area over by Lincoln School. And then number 4 is the North Star Industrial Park. And then CRA number 5 is out on the west end of town. That's the next slide there, Nick. Thank you. So those are your areas. It's got to be within the city, so part of CRA number 5 there, for example, that other area, that is Hopewell Township. That's just outside of the city limits. Any questions on those CRAs? Okay.
Zach, I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment. So some of you may know, prior to this, I was at Economic Development, dealt a lot with CRAs. Council, you approved a CRA last year for Hobby Lobby to give them an abatement there, just so you may or may not remember that. And I'm sure that Zach is probably going to bring it up later, but if you recall, last month you also approved the recommendations of the Tax Incentive Review Council. Again, that is where council kind of steps in and is part of the process to help those projects, all those abatements continue to move forward. And then just something to bring up, as Zach kind of alluded to, with these abatements, even though they are abatements, there is still taxation going on. These property owners are still paying that percentage that they paid prior to having the improvement on that land. So there is still funds going back to the schools, back to the other taxation authorities. It's any of the improvements that they do. So if they build a new building or renovated a structure, that is what is being abated. That's the tax that they're not being charged for that period.
Yeah. So no, it's a great point. Tax Incentive Review Council. So when you create TIFs and CRAs, you're required to have this Tax Incentive Review Council. They meet once a year. By statute, there are certain people that are on it. And then you as council have kind of a standing appointments for certain council members to be on that, plus county auditor, representatives from the school district, representative from TSAP. But they look and review through each of these, and then they give you those recommendations you just got a couple weeks ago. Also at the CRAs, there's a housing council, and then their job is to, anyone that's got an agreement is to go back and make sure that they're doing those things under that agreement. As far as TIFs and CRAs, before I move on, just know that, like, for economic development purposes, those things can work in tandem as well. So just because you have a CRA in an area doesn't mean you couldn't also have a TIF or vice versa. So obviously, if you're granting a tax abatement, that's going to impact the TIF. So this is where those kind of post-94 / there's a change in 23, so they're also called post-23 CRAs, but this is where on your commercial and industrial helps that you get to make the decision of whether to grant that CRA or not. So if you're putting a TIF in that area, you probably don't want to also grant the CRA. All right, so this is a little different. This has to do more with financing. This really is a benefit for a private landowners is not really much of a benefit for the city other than getting, say, a property improved or built. So PACE financing is, again, it's a loan that is taken out by the property owner that has to do with either renewable energy or energy efficiency type of improvements. So they're getting that loan. That can be from public or private entities. And what happens is you're doing a special assessment. Okay, so back to, this is all real estate taxes. You're doing a special assessment for that project, and that money, just like taxes, collected just like taxes, that will go to the lender. So effectively, you're giving a lender kind of lien priority rights better than what a typical mortgage lender gets. So if you're stacking liens, you've got the real estate taxes always come first, and then you've got your mortgages in the order they're filed. And so if you're the primary lender, you're always getting a first mortgage, and that's good. But for the PACE, you step into the tax, so you're up above the regular mortgage lender, and you're getting paid just like the taxes. So that's where the lenders like this, because they have better rights, and their payment's going to come out of the taxes, which generally speaking are going to get paid. So that's their incentive to do it, is they get this kind of super priority. To do this, there's a special improvement district, or it's an energy special improvement district, and he said that gets created, and it's going to be created for that particular parcel. So what will be coming to you is a petition from the Tiffin Boutique Hotel Group at next council meeting to create the ESID to do this PACE financing. And so it will be for that property. But this special improvement district that gets created, it's kind of like a nonprofit board. And it will have board members, which will include, by statute, the mayor, a representative that council chooses, and then it's a 5-member board. The other 3 are from the property owner. So you'll take the petition, you'll have a resolution to approve that petition from them to go ahead and create the ESID. You'll also appoint your representative for that board. I believe at this point, we're probably looking at the city administrator as that appointee, but that's definitely something we'll have ironed out in 2 weeks. You'll have the ordinance to do the levy for the special assessment, and then that's spaced out over what the loan needs. So in this one, I'm told it's a 20-year loan, so you're going to have the specials assessment over that 20-year period. You're then going to receive that in a special fund, okay? And then that special fund, what comes in, will then go from the city to the lender. So again, you're cooperating in this process, but it, at the end of the day, isn't really something that, say, directly affects the city. It's not a tax abatement. It's not getting money for public improvements, but this is to help make, kind of clean energy project happen. So any questions on just kind of that process of what this PACE financing will look like? So what I got from their counsel, so they're working with an attorney at Bricker and Graydon, is this would be $1 million loan taken out by them, and again, it's over a 20-year period. So, so what we'll have in that legislation is a table of these assessments that'll come out over that 20-year period that'll then get collected. So it'll ultimately go to the county auditor to add this special assessment. And then they'll collect the taxes, send the money to us, and we send it to the lender. And then once you have the ESID in place, other projects could get added to it in the future. Okay, and they don't have to be contiguous. So if you got a project here in downtown and then you got a new one out in the West End, out in the Westgate area, that's fine. But once we go ahead and create this, then it can kind of continue on if there's other projects added. So what I show you there is a map. All the green are counties where there is an existing ESID in place, and then the dots are where these various projects have happened. So you can see it's been quite popular in the Cleveland area and Cincinnati area, but this is a growing trend. These are becoming more and more popular. We had one for the downtown hotel, but not downtown hotel, but the riverfront property. But then that we just repealed that like 2 months ago because they changed direction. But as far as we know, this one I think will be a project that'll happen. And probably fair to say that NOPEC is the financer for this. So again, this is kind of where that financing doesn't always have to come straight from the bank. But that's what's coming to you next meeting. So I just thought I would kind of lay some foundation for you. I know their ask is going to be to both introduce it and then go ahead and pass it with suspension because they would like to get their project going. So I wanted to give you some framework before you got that.
Sure. Can you share this with us?
Absolutely.
That would be really helpful. Does anyone have questions right now? It's a lot of information, but that was really helpful.
It is. I guess the only thing I'll need to know, the legislation is prepared. The attorney for Bricker has done 99% of that. But I'll need a council member to sponsor, introduce that. So not to put you on the spot, Kevin, but I don't know if as kind of finance committee chair, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. That is all. That concludes my report.
Short report?
I tried.
Right. No, thank you for that. All right, we are now under written communications.
Thank you. We have mayor's request for legislation, number 25-14, Dora boundary update.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation 25-14 is assigned to the Law and Community Planning Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation, number 25-21, withdrawal of appointment request, City Tree Commission.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation number 25-21 will be held on file in the clerk's office.
And then not on the original agenda page, but in the agenda change memo you received today, there are 4 additional mayor's requests for legislation and 1 additional that wasn't emailed to you earlier, but is now in the packet, in the printed information. So I'll go through those. The mayor's request for legislation number 25-22, Water Pollution Control Loan Fund, WPCLF agreement.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-22 will be assigned to the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-23, easement agreement for the construction of the South Sandusky Culvert Project.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-23 is also assigned to Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-24, accept property and enter into easement agreements with private property owners.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-24, also assigned to the Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-25, Ohio Nature Works Grant Program application.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-25 is assigned to Law and Community Planning.
And mayor's request for legislation number 25-26, Public Works Department Capital Equipment Fund.
Mayor's request for legislation number 25-26 is assigned to the Finance Committee.
And then we have Finance Director's request for legislation number F25-8 to amend the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the fire claims escrow budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F25-8 is prepared tonight as ordinance 25-30.
And Finance Director's request for legislation number F25-9 to amend the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the fire department budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation number 25-9 is prepared tonight as ordinance 25-31.
And we also have Tiffin Fostoria Municipal Courts 2024 Annual Update.
Thank you. This annual update will be held on file in the clerk's office.
And that concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anyone wishing to address council may step to the podium, sign in, and direct your questions to myself. Okay. We are now under motions. Are there any motions this evening? Okay, we are now under resolutions and ordinances.
Resolution number 2025-20, introduced by Kevin Reesner, a resolution approving the adoption of a general fund carryover balance policy.
Thank you. This is the third reading of Resolution 25-20. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for passage of Resolution 2025-20.
Thank you. There's a motion for passage of Resolution 25-20. Is there a second? Councilmember Hayes.
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the passage.
Councilmember Erneman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Dougherty.
Yes.
And Hayes.
Yes.
Resolution 25-20 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2025-23, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting replacement pages thereto and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is the third reading of Ordinance 25-23. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for passage of Ordinance 2025-23.
Thank you. There's a motion for passage of Ordinance 25-23. Is there a second? Councilmember Snee.
I second that motion, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll first vote on the emergency.
Councilmember Herniman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Dougherty.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Herniman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Dougherty.
Yes.
And Hayes.
Yes.
Ordinance 25-23 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2025-25, introduced by Kyle Dougherty. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to take all actions necessary to grant an easement in the right-of-way adjacent to real property located at 806 West Market Street.
Thank you. This is the second reading of Ordinance 25-25.
Ordinance number 2025-27, introduced by Kyle Dougherty. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to take all actions necessary to accept a donation of a post clock from the Rotary Club of Tiffin.
Thank you. This is the second reading of Ordinance 25-27.
Ordinance number 2025-28, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the law director's budget and the street department budget.
This is the second reading of Ordinance 25-28.
Ordinance 2025-29, introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the annual budget.
This is the first reading of Ordinance 25-29.
Ordinance number 2025-30, introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the fire claims escrow budget.
This is the first reading of Ordinance 25-30. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of Ordinance 2025-30, suspending City Council's reading rule.
Thank you. There's a motion for suspension of council's three-reading rule and immediate passage of Ordinance 25-30. Is there a second? Councilmember Herniman.
I'll second that motion, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. This deals with escrow insurance monies, and this allows the finance director to move those monies in and out. The amount we're talking about here is $116,285.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Herniman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker,
Yes.
Dougherty,
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0, and I'll vote on the passage.
Councilmember Herniman,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
Thacker,
Yes.
Dougherty,
Yes.
and Hayes.
Yes.
Ordinance 25-30 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2025-31, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2025 budget ordinance 24-94 to appropriate funds into the fire department budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 25-31. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 2025-31, suspending city council's reading rule.
Thank you. There's a motion to suspend council's 3-reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 25-31. Is there a second? Councilmember Thacker.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. This deals with an equipment grant for the fire department. They're getting 3 sets of turnout gear. Good job in securing the grant. The amount we're talking about here is $11,796.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we will first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Herniman,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
Thacker,
Yes.
Dougherty,
Yes.
and Hayes.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Herniman,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Reesner,
Yes.
Snee,
Yes.
Thacker,
Yes.
Dougherty,
Yes.
and Hayes.
Yes.
Ordinance 25-31 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2025-32, introduced by John Hayes, an ordinance to amend section 141.01 of the codified ordinances to reduce the number of lieutenants of the police department.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 25-32.
And that concludes the legislation.
Thank you. We are now under other business. I'd like to announce a public hearing for May 5th, the next council meeting at 7 p.m. Regarding the mayor's request for legislation to expand the DORA boundaries. Is there anything else to come before council this evening? Councilmember Thacker.
Yes, I'd also like to announce a street sidewalk sewers committee meeting for Monday, April, didn't write down the date, sorry about that.
14th.
Thank you, 14th. At 5:15 PM in council chambers to discuss mayor's request for legislation 25-22, 23, 24, and any other business that comes before that committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Dougherty.
Yes, I'd like to announce a law and community planning committee meeting on April 14th, following the street and sidewalk committee meeting at city council chambers to discuss mayor's request for legislation 25-14 and 25-25 and any other business that comes before us.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Reesner.
I just wanted to double check with Councilmember Thacker. It's 5:15.
Yes, what did I say?
I don't know. Oh, okay. I don't.
But just double check. Okay.
Apologies, I guess can I amend mine to say 5:15 if I said otherwise?
Sure. Thank you. Councilmember Reesner.
I'd like to announce a finance committee meeting held in council chambers to discuss mayor's request for legislation 25-26 and at 5:15 p.m. Thursday, April 10th. And also to discuss any other business that comes before the committee.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else to come before council this evening? Okay, seeing none, we can adjourn. Thank you.